So did my undergraduate at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. And after my freshman year, I tried to get an internship and I failed. So I had to go back and think, okay, I really want a job in the field, but I can't get one. So what do I have to do to get those skills? So I joined the Formula SAE club on campus. That's the club that builds a race car around a motorcycle engine.
In your undergrad?
Yeah. So that's when I started to make some connections and got the skills, and then I started to apply to some internships. So my very first internship was at a company called Diesel Radiator Company, very small company, around 200 people in Chicagoland. That was essentially through a connection. I was working with someone that was a junior. They saw that I was, really getting after the tasks. So they said, "Hey, my friend at this company is looking for an intern."
Right.
That was internship number one. Number two was simply applying for GE Aviation on their website. So that got me an interview on campus, and that was internship number two. And then I was really into the car scene when I was in high school. So I thought, instead of meeting up with my friends in the parking lots and like showing off our cars, it'd be really cool to work for a car company. So that's when I had my eyes set on Tesla. And I actually applied to Tesla 3 times before I got accepted. So I got one interview in the middle of my sophomore year that turned into a second and third interview, and then I got rejected. I applied a year later for the same internship. I got ghosted at that time.
So when you were a junior?
Yeah. So when I was a junior, and then after my junior year, they asked me like, "Hey, do you want to interview for a third time?" And I thought, it's gonna suck hearing no for a third time, but if they say yes, then I got the job, and if I hear no, then I am where I am now, not working for Tesla.
Right.
So that third one actually went well, and that's when I got the internship at Tesla. And then I thought, when I was at Tesla, I thought, okay, this is really cool. I'm very fortunate to be here. What's cooler than this now? Like, where should I go and work next? So I thought, well, SpaceX would be really cool too. So that's when I applied to SpaceX, and I was offered that internship, not for the summer, but for the fall. And essentially all that meant was that I was going to have to push back my graduation. So I was originally scheduled to graduate with my bachelor's in May of 2014. At this point, I pushed it back to May of 2015, so a full year. And then they offered me to come.
How long were your internship at Tesla and at SpaceX?
Tesla was 6 months. SpaceX was 3 months.
Okay, so 9 months in overall, right? So, okay.
Yeah. And I essentially pushed back my graduation to November of 2015 from May of 2014. And that was the 6 months at Tesla, 3 months at SpaceX. And then I did 3 internships in total at GE Aviation. And those in total were 1 year. And then the very first internship at Diesel Radiator Company was 3 months. So in total, it was 2 full years of internships.
So that's the reason you have to. But I guess one thing that's very exciting actually, because I was interviewed for SpaceX and didn't accepted that offer for a job because of other reasons. But one thing I want to ask you is, which one of you enjoyed the most? Was it SpaceX or Tesla? Or I'm assuming between these two rather than GE, I guess.
Yeah. So what it makes me think of,
and why?
Yeah. So what it makes me think of is some of the internships I had were not as difficult as the other ones. They weren't. The engineers didn't have as much for me to do. And at Tesla and SpaceX, I had a lot to do.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Like people, you work as a full-time basically.
Oh, I mean, it was like 50-hour weeks. And even at SpaceX, so some of the days where I took the shuttle to work, as soon as I saw the SpaceX building, I was already anxious because I thought, what's going to break on me today? What experiment's going to fail? Like, but that one, I think the SpaceX one was by far my most difficult one, but it was the one where I learned the most. And I think
it was difficult because you did something different than what you were studied, or it was different because of the type of work they expected from you?
It was a little bit of both. They expected you to have the expertise of a full-time engineer, And I thought I was hot stuff because I was at Tesla and I went to a good school. And then they said, okay, start do these things. And I said, okay, I'll do my best. And they said, okay, we'll make the drawings, do the design, tell me what kind of nuts and bolts you need when it comes in, do the assembly and do all the tests. And
Right.
wow, I mean, I'll do my best, but
Yeah, you probably sell pretty hard, right? You said I'm coming from Tesla, and they probably expected more from you than probably.
Yeah. So it goes back to that saying, the experiences that you gain the most from are the ones they're proportional to the difficulty of the task.
Right. So one thing I want to ask you is, just curious, because you said you came here when you were 6 years old. So are you an international, or you are a US citizen, or you are in green card? Because of the ITR, I'm thinking like SpaceX, do they accept like internationals, or because Tesla accept internationals, right?
So at Tesla, you can be from anywhere in the world, but because SpaceX is ITAR restricted, then you have to be a citizen. So what happened is my parents took the citizenship test before I turned 18, and then it got passed down to me.
Okay. Yeah. I got it. So you were a citizen when you went to SpaceX, but for Tesla, it doesn't matter. International students can apply too. How was your experience in terms of like the interview process? Like if I'm a master's student, or let's say I'm a junior or sophomore, how should I prepare myself for the interview? Let's say specifically for Tesla, let's say.
So that's a great question, and I've thought about this a lot. So when I was preparing for the interviews at GE, I was told to study the STAR method, right? State the situation, the task at hand, the action you took, and the result. And there was a pretty cookie cutter list of questions, like tell me about a time you went above and beyond. Tell me about a strength. Tell me about a weakness. And
HR general questions, basically.
Yeah. HR questions. Even the engineers would ask you those questions, even though it was supposed to be a technical interview. For those internships, they want you to talk about your experience, but they have, they're going to ask you questions that are from a list. At Tesla and SpaceX, the questions were not at all like that. The questions were, oh, I see on your resume you worked here. Tell me what you did there. Tell me about X and Y. Very non-traditional.
So they are like straight to the point, technical. Show us A plus B whole square is what, rather than talking about how the weather is and all that, probably, right?
Yeah, so I really like that, because from one point of view, you can't like fake it, right? Like you could study a list of questions from the HR list and be good at them, but if an engineer tells you, oh, you worked on this car, well, tell me about it.
Right. So you have to know the technical part, right? You can't say like you don't know the equation, or let's say if they ask you to draw a free body diagram of a ring or something, right?
Yeah.
So you have to know what's the free body. Even you don't, even if you get wrong, probably they want to know what's your approach is, or how you.
Yeah. Like I remember specifically for SpaceX, they asked me a question of, you have two rigid walls and you have a beam in the middle. What happens when you heat that up, right? And then of course the stresses and strains are going to get higher. And then they asked me, okay, what if you have a limit on the stress that you can experience in that beam? How would you modify that system to then reduce the stresses and strains, right? So you really got to think about these things.
So there's like a lot of design. As I said, like what do you call in physics? You study these free body diagrams and all that. I probably forgot most of that.
It's along those lines, but they want to see, can you think intuitively? There's memorizations. They're going to ask you, how do you relate stress and strain? That's a very basic one for structures. But then they're going to ask you, okay, can you be a creative engineer? Because engineering, you have to think of new ways to solve problems. So can you think of new ways to solve a problem? Not necessarily to have the right answer, but just show me that you're creative on the spot. But the other really important part of it too, what I think is key for Tesla and SpaceX is you have to have some kind of experience. If you're just the freshman getting started off and you say, well, my resume says I do good in classes, that's great, but what sells them on you is, hey, I'm in this club where we are building a rocket or a car, and I've built things with my hands. Here is proof. Here's a picture. Here's an explanation. I've done things, which means I can do things at Tesla and at SpaceX.
So more on-hands experience sells better than theoretical, just to know how do you.
Yeah. Because those companies, they're not theory. They're what can you actually do, right?
So what is a day-to-day job looks like, right? In terms of like you you guys felt, as you said, right, pretty overwhelmed sometimes. As I said, but another question I have is, so what are you doing currently? Are you graduated, or what you are you working somewhere?
So right now I'm a PhD candidate at the Georgia Institute of
Okay,
Technology.
okay. So you went for a PhD rather than looking for a job.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, how based on, so you probably know a lot of your friends who were at Tesla. You probably have friends with them still, or SpaceX. How many times you see people turning those internship to a job?
Pretty often. I mean, if you go there and you do a good job, they don't want you to leave. So it's fairly common, right? You already know what the atmosphere is like. What you probably know, what the students are going to like to hear is that the 3-month internship is a 3-month interview, right?
Okay.
Which is great for
That's a good
the
way.
students too, right? Because
Right,
if you
right,
go to
right.
a job for the 3 months, say you hate it, you
Right,
don't have
right.
to
So,
come back. But if you
right.
love it, you already showed them that you belong there, right?
That's a good point. It's win for both, I guess, right? Because
Yeah.
nobody is going to interview for 3 months, right? So that's like
Yeah.
you can fake it basically.
Yeah.
Right. So is there any specific reason you said I want to go for a PhD rather than going for a job?
There were a couple of reasons. So one of the reasons was that at Rose-Hulman, my undergrad school, it's a teaching university, so they don't do a lot of research. And when I saw the professor have a job where, like, say you want to know something, and I know that's something, and I can teach it to you, and you want to listen, then that doesn't really feel like a job. That just feels like I would get paid to talk, right?
Right.
So that was one reason. But the second reason was after working for a lot of internships, I realized that there are people out there that know a lot more than I do, and that I still have so much left to learn. So it was the fact that that intellectual itch hadn't been satisfied yet.
I think there is one of the other reason also, right? Which I say to a lot of students, like if you probably invest in your PhD 10 years down the road, probably that might be a better decision, because then you can move. There's no limit for you to move up in the ladder in technical area, especially. Because if you see, I mean, I hate to say, but degree doesn't say a student is smart, but the value it gets, if you look at all the big companies, all the VP of R&D or CTOs, all are PhDs. I mean, no way they're going to put a bachelor's or a master's there. At least I have not seen it. I mean, I have worked at all the companies. That's what I see.
And I think the way I justify that is the PhD, like when I was in high school and then when I ended my bachelor's, I was two very different people, because the bachelor's taught me how to think. And I've been at this PhD for 4 years now, and it's very much refined the way I think. But the sell of a PhD program is not the fact that now I can work for you in microstructure modeling. It's the fact that you give me a problem, I'll solve it. I'll do the research. I'll figure out how to get you a solution. And people don't. Maybe graduate students don't like the fact that their advisors make them write papers, but this is something I heard from a psychologist. When you writing is a very complex form of thinking. So by doing a PhD, by writing a dissertation, you're proving that I can think, I can think critically. So then maybe that's why they're going to take and put you as a VP or a CTO, because you've demonstrated very rigorously that you could think.
It's a different sort of a training, I guess. So let me ask you this. The question is, like, for a student, usually when these internships come, do you have any idea, like at Tesla, SpaceX, and how long they last, and when people should look for these internships? Is it around this time, or?
If students are looking for the summer, I think Tesla posted their summer 2021 internships maybe a few weeks ago. So I'd say the earlier the better, but in my case, they had some extra spots. Or you could have a situation where, hey, we're behind on this project. We need someone in like a few weeks. So best case is you apply 6 to 9 months before and they lock you in. But sometimes if plans fall through, maybe you realize, hey, I want to take a semester off of school. Those can be pretty late in the game too.
Right. So how about like people who are like fresh and they are thinking of, they should do an internship. what are the things you think they should think about preparing now? Let's say next year they're applying. So what do they should do now? So they are
Yeah.
like,
Better
these
candidates.
are the things. Yeah, I'm a better candidate, or I'm a good candidate.
So one thing that can be difficult is identifying your weak points. So for me, when I failed to get that internship after my freshman year, I really had to look at my resume and say, like, this is inadequate. Like, I obviously don't have the skills, because if I had the skills, I would get these internships. So it's reflecting on where they could improve, and then going out of their way and finding those opportunities at the university for volunteer work or being part of those clubs and teams that maybe they don't want to do, but it's just a stepping stone, right? If being on a club for a couple of months and contributing to their product means that you can then make a case for yourself to work at the place you really want to be at, like Tesla, then so be it, right? It's a small sacrifice. I think that's the biggest thing, yeah.
And usually, do you know, let's say you get an internship 1 year, is it automatic? They call you next year, or you have to apply every time? Or is it much easier because you know now the manager, or probably you know people inside, right? So you can email them and say, hey, I'm interested. Does that help? Does that help?
I think it's a lot easier once you even know the recruiter and your team. Like, if you work on a team one summer and next summer you want to be there and the team wants you there, then unless something happens, you will be there because they want you there and you want to be there. So,
and what are the parameters, or what is the evaluation system is like when you leave the internship? They say, or how do you know you did a good job or you did not do a good job? What's that process?
Actually, I think back to both Tesla and SpaceX. At the start of the internship, there were very clear goals. At Tesla, I had 3 major projects and then a few smaller ones. And then, of course, the smaller ones, maybe they evolved or changed. But at the end of the 6 months, I was evaluated on how far I got with this project, not just how technically sound my skills were, but if I was clear at communicating, if I pulled my weight, if I was a hard worker. Actually, before I left SpaceX, I got a chance to sit down with Mark Concosa. He was the VP of Structures, and I basically wanted to pick his brain about working at SpaceX and what it takes to be successful. So this would have been around 6 years ago because I interned there at SpaceX in 2014. But what I remember from that conversation was him saying that if you have two candidates for a spot, say you have one that has experience with rocketry, maybe they worked at Boeing, and they're kind of good guys, they kind of want to be there, and you compare that to someone that has never worked in a rocket field, but they get to work early, they just pull their weight, they're enthusiastic. After about half a year to a year, that second person will far outperform that first person just from the sheer enthusiasm and wanting to be there, wanting to work the extra hours that maybe aren't as glamorous, but are necessary to be successful in that field.
So what you're saying essentially is, don't just go because it's Tesla. Make sure that you are interested in, because if you are not, or not enthusiastic about that work or that piece of thing, that could be a disaster for you. Yeah, going over there.
Yeah.
Did you had some memories where you saw some guys like crash down or run away, like they are in a military school and they're like, oh, we are being.
Yeah, I have two stories of that. Well, one story that comes to mind. One of the good friends with me that I met at SpaceX. I won't say his name, but the way SpaceX did things, and I think the way they still do things now is, so I was an intern because I was still in school, but anyone that graduated with a bachelor's, before they hired you full time, you were still an intern for 3 months, even though you already had a bachelor's.
Oh, really?
And after 3 months, if you did great, not good, if you did great, then they kept you on, because they're not messing around. They're not going to hire you for a couple of years if you can't do good work, right?
Is it happens for and just bachelor's entry level jobs, or at any level?
I can imagine mainly at bachelor's, right? Because you have like kids that are just graduated.
Right.
They're still kind of like figuring out themselves.
Right. Got it.
one of my friends, he was there with me, and he already finished his bachelor's, and his 3 months didn't go well, because it's obviously hard. And after 3 months, they said, "Hey, you did good, but we want to give you another 3 months, give you another chance to, show what you're made of." And he said, "No, that's okay. I'm gonna go work at Boeing. It's less hours, it's less stressful because this is just too much for me."
So it's not everybody's cup of tea, basically.
No. Like you can't fake it. Like you need to drink the SpaceX Kool-Aid, right? That's what it was.
I mean, the reason is because you have done internship at GE, and you can imagine working at GE. I was at Rolls-Royce. It's a pretty laid back companies, right? I mean, they are like, "Are you okay?" They treat you like a baby, basically, like
it's
comparatively, right? But I guess at Tesla and SpaceX, these two companies I heard, which demands very much. I mean, one of the reason when I was interviewed, they were very clear about the working hours and many other things. So there is no like in their part they are very clear. Usually that doesn't happen in a lot of companies. I have worked with a lot of companies, but it doesn't happen. But my understanding with them is like they are like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. Chris, thank